What's worse, sewage water or no water?
Hmm.
I don't know.
Well,
What?
if they have no water, they'll probably try to collect rainwater and stuff, and that's no good. So you should give them the sewage water.
That's a good idea.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what I had that's what I had Latvia running on.
Latvia. So what's with all these Latvia jokes going around all of a sudden?
I don't know. It came around recently. I really like it because it's complete anti-humor.
Yeah, when you showed me your list of top 10 favorite Latvia jokes, I just sat there with a blank face. I'm like, what?
To me, it's well, it's either the funniest thing there's no. The, I think it's funny just because I it's hard to explain.
A lot of potato humor in there.
Yeah.
The potato button on Potato Book doesn't work.
Okay, you guys ready to get started?
Yeah, is anyone else coming?
No, it's just us.
Oh, this is gonna be awkward.
Why?
I'm sure Mike will have a lot to say about
He
SimCity.
didn't want to come on, so
Oh, he didn't.
I don't know. He's like,
Did-
"Well, it's done. I returned the game." That's so. You know, whatever.
You know who would have a lot to say? Be Barrow.
Oh yeah, he would definitely have a lot to say there. Did he actually buy the game?
He
Oh,
he
okay.
played the beta and made his decision at that point.
Oh, okay.
That was a smart. That was smart of him, actually.
I always say beta. I guess it's beta.
Beta.
Beta, yeah.
What's like? How do you pronounce META?
META.
You know, I pronounced it meta for a long time, but everyone says meta, so I don't know now.
Yeah, it's meta.
So
Well, that
that's
doesn't
meta.
make any sense.
This is English we're talking about. It doesn't make sense.
Has to follow the rules.
Yeah, it has to follow the precise, consistent rules that the English language has.
The rules are completely arbitrary, kind of like this game.
There you go.
The rules
So,
don't
yeah.
matter. You know, it's like whose line is it anyway? The points don't really matter.
Yeah.
As it becomes apparent that you could plot pretty much anything you want, and your city's going to thrive.
Yep.
Yeah, I was browsing the SimCity forums and I found a pretty interesting analogy. Someone said that the SimCity is a lot like playing the computer a game of chess, except the computer does not validate your moves, so you can do whatever you want, but you probably wouldn't think to break the rules at first. So you're kind of playing by the rules or what you think the rules are.
Hmm.
But only
And then,
later
and then
on.
suddenly you find out you can use your pawn to go diagonal all the way across the board and take out the queen.
Yeah, pretty much. So yeah, it's like a lot of people are saying it. The game's kind of deceptive in a way. It sure does look pretty though.
It does look pretty.
It is. I think it's taking advantage of a fan base that has been trained on how to play SimCity. So
Yeah.
they play it that way and they don't notice it initially.
You don't have to balance the RCI at all. I mean, that's
I
pretty much all there is to it.
just want to say one more thing about the game looking pretty. You remember that letter going around that EA employee who had a lot to say?
Which one? Oh, yeah, I remember that.
So that guy he was in the arts department, and I was thinking about that for a moment. I'm thinking the game really looks good, and there's a lot of attention to detail. For example, like solar panels go up on buildings that are educated, and if you zoom in, you can see trash overflowing in the dumpsters and stuff like that. I think that
Yeah.
the arts department really pulled their weight, and they did a pretty good job in the game. And
Yeah.
I would be disgruntled too if the game ended up coming out the way it did.
Yeah.
I think the visuals are the best part of the game because you really can make a pretty looking place. Of course, the limitations of everything else in the game sort of make everything fall flat.
Well, I really like the music. The music, I want the soundtrack. I mean, it's definitely good music.
Max
It
is
was
still
all right.
Yeah,
I do kind of prefer the music of SimCity 4.
that jazz music.
Yeah, kind of the more city feeling music.
Yeah.
This felt, as one reviewer said, it felt more like a Philip Glass type stuff, which it was his thing. It's just not really my thing. A little bit too dramatic.
Music's always been pretty good in the SimCity series. One song I cannot find. I've searched the internet forever because it's so rare. Is back in SimCity Classic for the PC. If you bought the lesser known Like it was like an expansion pack you can get for SimCity that added all like the ancient times and futuristic skins for
Oh,
the
I heard
game.
about that.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
If you got that, it added more music to the game too, and there were some pretty good beats,
Oh,
like
that's
all
interesting.
Oh,
MIDI files,
that's
I
kind of
guess.
cool. I
And
should probably look that up.
I can still remember them in my head, but I just cannot find them anywhere on the internet.
Well, let's kind of focus on before we got the game. Like, what other SimCities have you played before? Like, what's been your experience with the series?
So I played back in Windows 3.1 days.
Uh-huh.
Started original SimCity. I remember I played that I was in the third grade at the time. I'm 29 years old now, just for reference.
Okay.
And that game was very child defining for me. Like I actually went through a few years of my childhood saying I want to be a mayor when I grew up. 'Cause
It's awesome.
I love SimCity. It was great, and I played all the other Sim games, Sim Farm, Sim Earth,
Yeah.
Sim Live, and I even went through my closet like about a year ago, and I found an old like journal we kept in school for the third grade, and I was looking through this thing, and I wrote a lot about SimCity back then. Like my city just hit 300,000 or like 3,000 people today, or just all my little accomplishments
that's
and
really
stuff
cool.
like that. So, and then I got SimCity 2000 later on, but I was still on the Windows 3.1 computer, and oh boy, I was pretty depressed that I couldn't play it. So that was like torture. And then we finally upgraded eventually, and SimCity 2000 was amazing. I mean,
Yeah.
that was like a huge jump. They added ordinances. They added most all the features that exist in the game now. You know,
Mm-hmm.
SimCity 3000 is kind of I don't remember too much about 3000. It's like a memory hole for me.
But you played 3000?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, because I never played 3000. I did the first one on, I think it was Windows. Maybe it was Nintendo. I'm not sure. One of the two. And then I got 2000 for like Christmas one year. And that was a really fun game. Although it was really hard for me.
Yeah. The one thing I do remember about 3000 was I think when I got it, I was also in trouble in school at the time. Like I wasn't doing very good, but I also had SimCity 3000. I really wanted to play it.
Mhm.
So I remember like sneaking up like late at night to go play it. And if I got
that's
in
cool.
trouble, I'd be like in my room just reading the manual. Because the manual in that game, I just looked it up recently. If you like do a Google image search for SimCity 3000 manual, it's like a huge book.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they actually talk about the different types of buildings, and what you can expect, like when you get your high-rise buildings and such, and yeah, it's really in depth.
Yeah, it's a big book. That's what SimCity 4 came out like 10 years ago, and yeah, I don't think there's much to say about 4. Everybody pretty much enjoyed that pretty well, especially with the Rush Hour expansion pack.
Yeah. What about you, Charles?
Well, my first foray into the sim games was Sim Earth, and so I remember I would play Sim Earth a lot, and,
That game was
and
weird.
it usually ended up with a nuclear winter. And so I do remember so some of the things I did in elementary school, I would write about nuclear winters detected and all sorts of weird things.
In Simmer?
Yeah, on
Oh, that's
on
right.
Sim Earth.
You could get colonization too. I remember now. In
Yeah,
Simmer.
it was kind of interesting.
Or am I thinking of
And
Sim Life?
I'm trying to remember, and then I got Sim Ant, and I played Sim Ant for a while, and that was great. And once I got used to fighting off the red ants and occupying the house, it was the best thing ever. Um, I played Sim Farm. Sim Farm was great. I don't remember much of that except when the pigs got loose, the cars would run over them and they would turn into these flattened pigs.
Oh, I forgot about that.
And the weird thing is the flattened pigs seem to still move around, which is kind of odd.
Yeah.
Oh, by the way, I just did a Google search for Sim Earth. So I guess I didn't play Sim Earth. I'm thinking of Sim Life.
Yeah,
Okay.
Sim Earth was really, really, really weird. Did it have like an Earth face on it? I don't know if it did.
Yeah, I did. It's like the box art was it looks like a blue marble, but it's not actually Earth.
Yeah, it was something like that. And then so my first SimCity game was SimCity 2000, and that was, to me, that was entirely a new thing. I never really read the manual, and I remember. Do you remember how you can make your customized signs on SimCity 2000?
Yeah.
And that was a rather prevalent button actually. You could lay down your sign.
I didn't like that because the signs were not, of course, like scaled with the city. They were
Yeah,
giant.
the first the first sign I made was actually a stop sign. So there's like this giant billboard that stuck out that said
Yeah, can you
stop.
imagine seeing that in real life? This thing that's going like 100 feet across.
Just clearing all the skyscrapers. And
Stop.
stop.
Yeah.
And I eventually got the hang of it, and it was actually a pretty hard game. I do remember that playing some of the scenarios, like getting Flint, Michigan out of its depression, or the Oakland Hills fires, and trying to put out the fires and rebuild the city from
Yeah,
that. And
I,
it wasn't trivial at all. Like it really
that's
took a lot
right.
of thinking.
I forgot about the scenarios. Did they do scenarios in SimCity 4?
I don't recall scenarios in SimCity 4, but I'm not
Yeah,
sure.
I remember doing the scenarios all the time in SimCity, the classic. There was always there was the one where you had to fix. There was a meltdown that starts right at the beginning. You start with like four nuclear power plants, and they all melt down, and
Yeah.
you got to get the city back to glory. Yeah.
It's such a good design. I really had a lot of fun playing SimCity 2000 because it really was a challenge, but it took me a long time to figure it out, especially because I was just a kid, and
Hmm.
having to micromanage all this stuff.
Yeah, it was
Yeah.
definitely really hard. Like I would fail city after city, and I eventually gave up on it. But it was fun when I got it to work. The really hard part was just planning out like the plumbing for me.
A lot of people say they are happy that plumbing is gone in SimCity, the new
I
SimCity.
actually kind of am.
Yeah, a lot of them, I think almost everybody I heard said they like that. I don't know, plumbing, it didn't bother me. I just did the plumbing in a maximum efficiency grid
Yeah.
across the city and worked pretty well.
Hmm. Oh,
I
there you go.
remember in SimCity 3000, I actually that's when I started really getting into the SimCity games a little bit more in depth. SimCity 3000 was kind of nice because actually, it was just like an improved 2000. It had some higher resolution textures, and I remember I used the Asian building set.
Hmm.
So I think I had unlimited or something. I forgot what it was. And it was kind of nice because uh, I could build these really nice looking areas that were highly desirable and put in low density houses. And these houses would turn into mansions, and it wasn't so much how many squares you laid down, kind of like 2000, but the squares would sort of combine and make these huge single houses, and it was kind of fun to see.
Do you remember I think it was called the Urban Renewal Kit or Urban Development Kit?
I don't think I ended up getting that one. That was the expansion pack, right?
Um, yeah, I'm looking into it right now. I'm talking about it was a free download you can get for SimCity 3000, but it would let you basically build your own buildings. Like it had like a Lego block kind of design where you
Oh
just
yes.
you take primitives and you design your own buildings and then you can skin them and such like, and then you can integrate them into your game so you can have your own buildings basically.
I think I do remember that
That's
actually, and
interesting.
I played around with it for a short time. I think I wanted to make some really tall skyscrapers, but I didn't really know art that well, so I just ended up drawing black lines.
That's just max like just commie blocks basically.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
but,
uh, what about this new game? What were you kind of hoping you'd get out of it? Like, what new features? What things were you kind of excited about?
well, I joined already knowing that the plot size was going to be very small, and I was thinking, okay, well, they're rationalizing the small plots because of specialization and stuff like that. And also, I tend to be very slow builder. Like I spend a long time in this one little area. I like doing the aesthetics of buildings, and that's one thing that SimCity is good for me at least, is that you can draw pretty cities. You just don't simulate very well, That's another topic though. um,
Yeah, yeah. It was kind of nice in that I came in there. I was actually fairly excited about the glass box engine that they were pushing forward, and the idea of resource management, and I felt that it would be a very good. It would add a really cool dynamic to the game. So I was actually expecting a slightly more complicated, in-depth game than the previous ones.
Hmm.
Right. So the whole specialization and region sharing thing that they were pushing for, it all sounded pretty good on paper, I guess. But I remember the first few days that we played, um, like I developed a city with no industry because on the link up the road he was building an industrial city.
Hmm.
But when I look at the regional view, I would expect most of my people to be commuting out of town to go to his city, but I just never really noticed that. I never saw any of his freight coming in to my city to support the commercial because it doesn't work that way. So there's a lot of things I would have expected to happen based on my experience with SimCity 4.
Hmm.
That didn't work out.
Well, gosh, you kind of make me look kind of like newbie because I was just excited to be able to fly through the buildings and stuff. I mean, when I had SimCity 2000, I wanted SimCopter, but never got it because that's what you could do with it.
Yeah,
So,
SimCopter.
so there it is.
Simcopter was great. I really enjoyed that.
SimCopter 1 reporting heavy traffic.
Yeah. So, when did you kind of first start doubting that, the game wasn't what you thought it should have been? Like, you were playing along. What was your first niggling doubt that, hey, maybe it's not, maybe something else is going on here than I think?
Well, there was always the constant traffic jams, and at first I'm thinking, boy, my road design must be pretty bad. So I went through city after city. By about the fourth city, based on all the experience I've learned, I was thinking, okay, this road design has to work. I minimized my intersections. I got all my zones meticulously placed so that their front is on the side streets instead of the main avenues.
Mm-hmm.
All those tricks I read on the forums and stuff, and but it only takes like one little mishap to just cause the domino effect to start happening, like a fire truck blocking a lane, and then the traffic backs up, and then gridlock starts happening, and then basically your best bet is just reload the game so the traffic resets.
Well, that's what fire trucks do in real life. If one stops to fight a house fire, then all the other fire trucks will just patiently wait behind it as the house, a few blocks ahead, just keeps burning.
But to be fair, real life emergencies do cause traffic jams, but they also cause detours,
Yeah.
Yeah.
which
Yes.
just didn't really happen too well.
And your typical residential street is more like it might be two lanes, but it's more like four cars across, so you can actually scoot your car over and pass.
Yeah. I think they're at least starting to address that particular issue.
Back on your question though, Chris, I did notice that, like, despite all my the problems in my city, like the worker shortage, stuff like that, things they were screaming about, what I noticed in this SimCity that is different than the previous SimCities is that no matter what state your city is in, no matter how bad it is, if you zone down plots, those plots are going to develop rather quickly.
Mm-hmm.
Because the way this game works is that when a sim wants to move into your city, they don't analyze the state of that city first. They move into it, and then after they move in to their newly built home, they will then decide whether they want to stay there or not. And
Yeah.
it might be a few months before they come to their decision, and you get all their tax income in the meantime.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Whereas in like the previous SimCity 4, for example, if you zone down commercial, but there's no reason to have commercial, those fields are just going to remain barren. Nothing will happen, and it will force the player to reanalyze the design of their city or improve it and just make it better. It drives them forward through the game's own design, basically.
Mm-hmm.
And that threshold of tolerance typically gets a little harder and harder as the city develops, which, that makes your city develop, and it proves the players. It gives the player a sense of achievement as their city continues to grow.
I was a bit of a mass producer when it came to the cities. I would typically look at the RCI demand and see where my city is falling short, and then rapidly figure out efficient ways to lay down the city. And I usually had visions of how I want the roads to go. So the first indication that something was amiss was how quickly I was able to fill my plot of land with a successful city that where everything works. Because
Hmm.
my only problems initially was running out of money too quickly because I was laying down roads too fast, and
Yeah.
I figured, okay, I just need to be more patient. So I was, but then once the money started rolling in, I started zoning my stuff. My whole city would be done in a couple of hours, and everything else I was doing from there on was just using the bulldozer and redrawing plots. But after that, it didn't really seem to make much of a difference.
Yeah, my first issue, I mean, I thought, gee, that is weird, is it was really easy to build a town. And, I'm coming from SimCity 2000, and I played that when I was, 13 or something like that? I don't know when it came out, but, so maybe it's just my age now being able to play games and it feels easier, but that was the first thing that I thought is this game feels really easy.
Hmm.
I don't
You
know.
know, and you were saying about the small plot sizes. That wouldn't be as big of a deal if there were more regions available, more cities available in the region. Like on the one we're on, there's 16 plots available. However, the 16 plots are broken down to 4 quadrants. So um, if us three were playing, and I mentioned Ani, he was playing too. That means all 4 plots are already taken.
Yeah.
So yeah, you can finish up your city and then start up a new city, but it's going to be outside of that little quadrant. The only connection really is maybe rail or ferry or airport, and it'll take a while before your city is developed enough to really have an airport.
Yeah, and I would totally be okay with the small plots if they were laid out similar to the way SimCity 4 was, and they were
Right.
adjacent to each other.
Sprawl going on.
And so the reward now, if you make your perfect city and everything looks great, no matter how you make that city look, the final product is going to basically be squares. Uh,
Hmm.
they're all kind of designed like plots. It's almost like Roller Coaster Tycoon, in that you have all these square plots with this grand entrance where a single highway just stops, and your only connection to the outside world is through that grand entrance.
Right.
So, and then you just spread your whole city from there, and it just does not feel like I'm building a city. There's nothing organic about it.
Yeah, and let's be realistic here. Like most people want to have like a big built-up city. I mean, that's the name of the game, SimCity. Who's going to want to have just a city of industry? That's all there is to it. Like specialized cities. I mean, I'm sure some people do, but most people kind of want to do like a big old city sort of thing. That's what I noticed in our
Yeah.
in our region. Every plot was a big skyscraper city.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't get a chance
Yeah.
to play too much. My game time before I started doing these videos was like 28 hours. So, I played every evening, every other day or so. But when I would log out, you guys would just be starting a new region or something. A day later, I'd log back in and the thing was just full of skyscrapers.
Uh-huh.
It should have taken at least a week for you to get there, I
Yeah,
think.
and
Oh
not
yeah.
only that, like speaking of like logging out and stuff, like if I do rely on specialization, for example, we were playing with Mike. Mike was going to be in charge of powering the city because he had all power, nuclear power plants and stuff like that. Well, he goes to bed. I keep playing for a while longer, and I got a burst of population that comes in. All of a sudden, suddenly my power spike, my power needs have spiked up, and who's going to provide for that power need? He's already gone to bed, you know.
Yeah.
So my choice would be either to call it quits for the night, even though it's already kind of early for me, or build my own power plants. So what ended up happening in all of our regions was that in the end I ended up being sort of self-sufficient because time zone differences.
Yeah. Yeah, that's one of the costs of doing an asynchronous game, I guess. Ooh, I said that in one word.
There you
That's great. One try.
Asynchronous.
Their specialization attempt might have worked if regions were really big, like tons of players,
Yeah.
and you can like draw resources from Canada.
Yeah. Yeah, that is true. A lot of the transfer of resources seems very old-fashioned.
Yeah,
By train, by car. But
and what's with
how often do I
not
do I
being able
do
to
that?
give money to cities that are not connected by road because I guess wiring money doesn't exist in the SimCity universe.
Hmm.
And
Yeah,
like Chris, your city was right next to mine, just like a
Yeah.
hike across the woods, but we didn't have a road connection. It's like, well, you never heard of like power lines that don't follow the road, backbone power lines.
Right,
We
exactly.
should have. There's no reason
Yeah.
why we shouldn't have been able to power one another.
That was one thing that SimCity 4 actually did pretty well. The power distribution it wasn't so much done by purely roads, but the only time you really needed to build power lines was if you were doing the big backbone ones.
Yeah, they didn't have the little power lines like in SimCity original.
Yeah, and the power was distributed simply by through the development of your urban stuff, your RCI development.
So yeah, I think these small plots were something that came down later down the line. I've been kind of watching the SimCity Reddit, and like a lot of the things those guys are uncovering through their modding and
Yeah.
poking around the game, it looks like the region was actually meant to be the original city size.
Oh, really?
Like, yeah, because the whole thing going on with being able to edit outside your borders,
Yeah.
being able to see the grid lines, guidelines beyond the borders, and just there's little clues like the way tourists work and commuting work. It doesn't kind of it seems like the original design was all just one city.
Yeah. Here's a question. Do you think they ran into technical limitations?
I think their AI didn't. They developed the city size first,
Probably.
and then they developed AI later, and they said, "Ooh, this isn't going to line up too well."
Oh, okay. So they had kind of a bad design process.
This is all just theory based
Yeah,
on
theory.
evidence,
It does make sense because when you think about it, why would you want your final product to be this sort of Kowloon walled city effect? When it sticks out, this urban mass that sticks out of the middle of nowhere that's completely undeveloped. I mean, there's not even farmland or anything. That was
Right.
another thing SimCity 4 and I think 3 did really well was you could make farms in small towns, and that was really fun because that too was a critical part of your economy.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, is there anything else that I've missed here?
Well, like a lot of what we said seems to point out that the game was perhaps rushed and released early.
Yeah.
There's probably no doubt about that. But what's interesting is that do you know that EA's fiscal year ends March 31st?
No, I didn't know that.
So I think I'd be a little suspicious of any game that's released right before the fiscal year end.
Oh.
Because it
It's an interesting
seems like
point.
they might have just tried to rush it out to get their books up a little bit more before the year end closes.
Maybe.
What's interesting is that EA, a lot of people are saying that EA is not really going to care about this because they're going to make their quick buck and they will leave. And the vast amount of people, well, at least I think EA's vision is that the people that they're trying to appeal to are the general masses, I guess, and not so much the enthusiast gaming community that existed during the previous SimCities.
Yeah, this definitely feels very much like a casual game.
However, would you say that Facebook is pretty prevalent among the masses these days?
Yeah.
And when you go to SimCity's page on Facebook with about 500,000 people or more who follow it, and you look at the comments, it's all the same. So I'm thinking that maybe the general masses are smarter than EA thought they were.
The smarter than the average bear.
This could just be the loud minority, though. The people who are pissed off the most, they're going to make the most noise, obviously.
Right.
It could be. I mean,
Yeah, I hope it's worse than that. I don't know how many people are actually as mad as we are about the game.
Yeah, I don't know.
I think we're probably some of the angriest because everything we've been doing for the past 10 years or more has been focused around the development of cities and urban planning.
Yeah, that's true. It's not so much the DRM for me. I was ready to just kind of roll over and take that, but I know a lot of other people weren't. But for me, it's definitely the city planning issue. It's just not a very deep simulation, it seems to me.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
I mean,
So, I mean, what do you guys think about the DRM? Is that an issue for you guys?
It bothered me initially, but I figured that if it's out of the way enough, which it wasn't quite, then maybe the game itself would be okay, and that I could roll with it. But the DRM is kind of a service, you know. I mean, it manages the licenses that everyone has to play the game,
Hmm.
but as a service, it should lay low. But everyone is sitting around, it's in everyone's faces. If you go to a five-star hotel or something, not that I've ever been to one, but when you hear about these documentaries about what it's like to work at one of the main things you have to do is make sure you don't smell like anything. You don't wear any colognes. You don't let yourself get dirty, obviously. But the whole idea is to stay out of the way until you're needed. And this service of DRM is slightly, to put it lightly, it's a little bit too noticeable.
Just a little bit, huh?
Yeah. I
I
personally haven't
did
had too many issues.
well, other than the launch days, of course.
Yeah.
But I didn't mind the DRM because of what I thought it was. I thought since they're trying to go for all the specialization and increase regional play, that the DRM is basically meaning that SimCity was kind of like an MMO, just for this genre. In that well, for one thing, I thought the regions were going to be a lot bigger than they were with a lot more people. That there'd be a lot more. That there'd be a lot less limitations with regional interactions versus just being able to trade along highways, for example,
Hmm.
and that your city would have more of an impact even when you're not playing the game. But when I'm playing the game, there's so much lag between what you do and what your neighbors notice, and that could just be server lag maybe. But even they've still fixed that up a little bit now. It's a little more responsive than
Yeah.
it used to be. Still pretty slow though. Like I've been trying to build a regional site with Mike, and that would be the Space Center. And there's like a lot of difference between what he sees and what I see as far as the process.
Hmm.
So if yeah, I think
It's interesting.
their interaction with regional play was poorly done,
So
to say the
some launch
least.
day bugs to get worked out. What do you think would make, this is just a question I just thought of, what would make the game playable? What might convince you to rebuy it?
Well,
Ugh.
they can keep all their art assets, they can keep their graphic engine, but they need to rework basically the glass box, the way agents work and the way zones, the way that the way the RCI interaction works, which is to say there's really not much right now.
Right.
As you have proved, Chris, you can do your whole residential only city.
Yes. Yeah, and as long as you
Yes.
keep fire and water and the utilities, I mean, even if there's no other cities around,
So like,
there you go. I mean,
I mean, basically, like the core mechanic between all the SimCity games has been RCI interaction,
yes.
and there's really not much of that in this game.
That
I mean,
I would argue it doesn't exist.
our
Yeah.
industrial, it's like its only industry's like only purpose is maybe you can say a job sink and
Yes.
that it makes the most money.
I
But
found the only need for industrial is to plop up your necessary seven buildings in order to, or 6 or 7 buildings in order to get your mining facilities,
right,
and then just destroy it
unlocks.
when you're done.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I've done that.
Yeah.
It
Go ahead.
well, I mean, the way it normally works is that the commercial relies on industry to provide the wares,
Okay.
and the commercial provides shopping and all those food needs for people. And it doesn't seem like a very complex model. I don't know why they abandoned it for.
Yeah. If they bring that back, I mean, I'd definitely consider coming back.
So, yeah, to answer your original question, though, if they can fix RC interaction and fix zone plot sizes or city sizes, I might consider coming back, yeah.
Okay. And what about you, Charles?
Um, yeah, I completely agree with the RCI interaction. Overall, the game needs to be much more challenging, and it needs to be, um, yeah, it needs to show off that kind of realism of RCI interaction. But right now, I can just build residential cities and all that. I would love to see people actually doing more commuting from town to town, improving the traffic, but that's kind of a minor thing. Um, if it was any one feature, yeah, it's probably RCI, but even then, that probably wouldn't make me get the game. I would also want larger plots or adjacent plots, like maybe the same
Mhm.
size plots, but running in a grid, so you can actually you actually have the option to make a city that other cities pass through. For instance, I
Yeah.
mean, my gosh, I mean, in how many cities in reality uh, are a city that you pass through? I mean, pretty much every city out there has has a is something that you can drive through if you have the option.
Yeah.
Right.
And not a single city in the new SimCity game that at least that I know of, they all seem to be endpoints where you enter and exit out the same way, which seems absurd to me. I mean, no city works that way, at least not that I know of. Maybe some isolated cities on peninsulas and some island nations.
Well, to be fair, my city, Port, was a road. It hosted the road in between Ani's city and your city, Charles.
Well, that's good. Yeah, I haven't had the luck of getting a plot that had that kind of highway. I
However, I
guess
don't know if it actually worked. Like, if someone was driving from Ani's town to your town, I don't think they actually drove through it because I didn't really see a lot of through traffic on that road.
that's so weird. And that's another thing. I wish that we had the option to lay out our own highways. I mean, why
Hmm.
is this considered the ideal thing?
Well, you can if you hack your game.
Yeah.
Yep.
Maybe it's not ideal. Maybe it's just what they thought they could do with the time they had.
I guess so.
So
Yeah, and given that
just be
whole fiscal
charitable
year
about it.
thing.
Yeah.
And you know another thing, despite all of that, I just don't have much faith in the company. I mean, have you seen Lucy Bradshaw's
Is this EA
posts?
or Maxis? Because
Um,
there is a slight
this is
difference.
Lucy Bradshaw, so I think she actually deals with Maxis, doesn't she?
Okay.
She's the developer of Maxis, yeah. Like, not the developer,
And
she calls herself the manager of Maxis.
Okay.
and oh my gosh, I mean, you can play buzzword bingo with her posts, and they completely insult the intelligence
Mm.
of everyone, well, of her audience. I mean, the only people that are going to go out of their way to read her stuff are the people who are genuine enthusiasts. Your average gamer is really not going to care what the management of the publisher or the management of the company says.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So she's
And
effectively made everyone angrier.
and you know, it's funny. Bad games come out all the time, and no bad game has like gotten like as much reaction as like, I don't know if that's true, but SimCity has gotten a ton of bad reaction
A-
because
Any bad
I
game from
think
EA will probably get this reaction.
any bad game, like
Well,
what, like
almost.
Need for Speed or
Well,
anything.
Spore, didn't that have a similar kind of flap?
Probably not on the
Yeah,
level of SimCity because Sport
because
was a new thing.
yeah, Spore
Oh,
didn't
okay.
have Spore didn't have a fan base other than people who were
Mhm.
hyped up for it.
Okay.
But like SimCity, there's been people playing that since like Windows 3.1, for example.
Yeah.
You got, and you know, like I was saying earlier, it was like a childhood defining game for me. So it's kind of an important game for me, more so than any other game that's come out because I hold a lot of nostalgia towards it,
Yeah.
and I kind of feel like I've grown up with it. So when
Yeah.
they just come around,
You
I
s-
don't think the company respected it very well.
You said they pulled a George Lucas on you.
I was commenting that, well, this must be how Star Wars fans felt when the new trilogy came out.
God help they don't feel the same
Yeah,
way when the new one comes out. But
yeah, I would really agree with the George Lucas effect. That is indeed how it feels for me. Um, but I guess another issue is well, I guess not to give EA credit or anything, or Maxis any credit. This is this is probably the worst SimCity game that has been released. However, there have been several iterations of really crappy SimCity games because there have been so many different versions of SimCity that were really questionable. But I think this is this is by far the worst one given the context because
Yeah.
everyone's been waiting around for 10 years for an actual SimCity release, and this thing comes out and it's just a complete turd. I really it's the only game that I've ever returned, and
Same
that
here.
says a lot because I tolerate a lot of mediocre games because I can make something of it. But with this game, it's like it's controlled with an iron fist. Everything I produce is property of EA.
Hmm. I think if it didn't have the SimCity label or the branding attached, then it would probably just be one of those games that you would just shrug off. It'd be casual city builder, and there you go. Didn't like it, move on. But
I'm kind of tempted to play SimCity Societies, that horrible game, just to see how it compares.
oh, was that horrible?
People always
Apparently,
say
there's
we
no
don't
zone
speak.
development.
People always say we don't speak of SimCity Societies.
Yeah,
Nobody wants
kind
to
of like how
acknowledge that.
there's never a Terminator 3. That doesn't
Yeah.
exist.
And nobody ever wants to acknowledge that that game even exists, hardly. Now I
Yeah.
kind of want to play it just to see how it compares. Also, I
Okay.
haven't played SimCity, or I haven't played Cities XL in a couple of years now. I'm kind of curious to see if it's changed at all.
Hmm.
If Cities XL just had different sized buildings, maybe that would look all right. I don't know. And
Yeah, 'cause
you know,
everything is like kind of like that 3x3 shape sort of thing.
yeah, and yeah, I just don't know. I mean, SimCity 5 is by far the best looking city builder, um, I think. Although I haven't really gone too much into Cities XL, but I mean, you really can make your stuff look great. It's
Yeah,
just unfortunate that the mechanics behind it aren't so
I
good.
took a whole bunch of screenshots of my city before I closed my mayoring career.
Here's
Yeah.
a screenshot that came up that's on Reddit that looks pretty good. I mean, that's SimCity 5. I mean, that's pretty darn cool.
Alright, let me take a look here.
Yeah.
Oh wow, yeah, that's the filter and all. Yeah. Looks like a nice suburban neighborhood.
Yeah.
That's
And
interesting.
yeah, that indeed looks nice. It's just unfortunate that that has to be tied up with a game that's so controlled. I mean, even in that picture, you can see the big traffic jam in the background of all the cars that are waiting to get on and waiting to arrive.
Yeah, I might have played SimCity a little bit longer if it weren't for the bugs as well. Oh, the bugs. Like, I don't think this got
Oh
happened to you
gosh.
guys, but like my streetcars, they worked pretty good for a while, but then all of a sudden, uh, the streetcar would never enter the network. It would just stay in the garage and it would never come out. And I've tried everything. I've like completely nuked my whole streetcar network and just started over again, and it won't ever come out. It's staffed, it's powered, it's watered, but
Yeah. And your first town got caught in that rollback bug, didn't it?
yeah, the infamous rollback. They might have fixed that now. I was reading the patches,
Yeah, I
but
think they did.
we have since changed servers, so I haven't been back there.
Another problem I had was the skilled workers in nuclear power plants. Because of how a glass box works,
Oh yeah.
if your whole population isn't completely educated and there just happen to be some uneducated people who live very close to your power plant or happen to get the signal to go to work first, then your power plant's going to be getting unskilled workers.
hmm
That's funny.
I
That's a
kind of
really
wonder if
funny
it.
one.
I wonder if it works the same way for high tech industry, because sometimes I saw them complaining about not enough skilled workers. I'm like, well, who's making it to work first? Is it is it
I
the
mean,
unskilled workers?
I mean, yeah, I mean, it's literally a game of musical chairs. I mean, that's exactly how employment works in SimCity.
Yeah.
Everyone
Now
just
that I think
runs to
about it,
whatever job's available.
now that I think about it, the community college in the game, it does actually say in the description that it like improves nearby industry, or increases their tech level. So I'm starting to think that they kind of knew that. So if you put the college near the industry, then chances are the people that are going to go to that college would be the people that live near it,
Yeah.
which might be the people that go to that industry section. But it shouldn't really work that way.
Yeah. Definitely. All right. Anything else you want to say before we wrap this up?
Oh, I can't wait for
Yeah,
SimCity 2.
yeah. I'm thinking someone needs to come around and make another one, either an independent developer or yeah, it would have to be an independent developer because I just don't trust EA. I would have to wait probably a good month after the next one came out before I would, with tons of positive reviews before I would get it.
Yeah. Well, all I have look forward to is either Civatus, which is that Kickstarter going off, or the unlikely scenario that SimCity will actually be fixed.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. All right.
Well, that was great. Thank you guys. You guys watching, thanks for sitting through this. We really appreciate it. I hope what we said was interesting and relevant to you. If you guys liked the video, please go ahead and hit that like button down below. Also, subscribe to the channel. We do Let's Play content, but if anything else like this breaks, I'm sure we'll probably get back together and do a similar sort of podcast. So thanks very much. Have a good night.
Bye.
So that game that you were playing in the background, how'd that work out?
I was able to keep up with the citizens moving in and moving out, but I was bulldozing buildings the whole time. So,
Oh my gosh.
yeah, there was only like a 2-minute lull. So yeah, you can do it, but you don't want to.
So basically, it's very hard to bulldoze things fast enough.
Yes. So you definitely want like fire and police and all your utilities, and then you can just kind of let it go. Like I was doing the Kuwait City test this afternoon, and that city was already kind of halfway built up, but it had all its utilities in place. The only thing that wasn't done was that the garbage dump was overfilled. I let it go for an hour, didn't see any appreciable effect. And then I demolished the whole thing, including the utilities. And weirdly enough, my population, immediately dropped down to 0, but then it shot up to 30,000 over what I originally had before it started dropping back down to about, I think it was like 14,000 or something like that, which is about where this city is sitting right now. So it looks like the AI is programmed to at least keep a population level of 14,000 if your city can sustain it.
So you can't lose.
You can't lose.
So I wonder how much better if you add just like one more utility, like what are they complaining about most, and just add that.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's 14,000. I'm a little fuzzy on the numbers, but yeah.